it's almost like, it's like a weird cycle. It's like you're using this substance to get rid of your guilt, but your guilt is there because of this substance. It's a weird thing.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Maeband channel.
Holly asked on Instagram if there were any questions that people have, so we got a couple questions. We're just going to kind of do a little quick Q&A maybe.
A lot of these we kind of already answered. When would you know it would be an addiction you couldn't control?
When you realize that it's something you can't control, it's too late. It's past the point of going back, because you're taking it and taking it and taking it, and then you finally realize, you're like, oh crap, I got a problem. And by that point, I was gone. It was just too late. If you know you have an addictive personality, and I know I do, I get addicted to everything. Doesn't matter what it is. You just need to know that you have to have somebody there to help you out. If somebody's got it, you've got to be humble and put your pride aside. And if that person needs to hide your pills and give you a pill at a time, if you have surgery or whatever it may be or whatever it is, you just need to put your pride aside. They're not trying to control you. It's very little control as compared to what's going to be controlling you, because that pill is going to be controlling your life.
Did you ever fear an overdose or death?
Yes, there were several times. Past couple years, I think it was like 2 years ago, I had a staph infection in my back, in my spine, and I honestly to this day don't know how I didn't die. And I was taking about, I'll just say about 5 or 6 times the amount that I was supposed to take. And there were plenty times where 5 minutes after I took them, my heart would just ache, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack. Yeah, there were definitely times. There were probably up to about 10 times where I thought I was going to die.
Before I realized how bad it had gotten. I didn't realize how much he was taking him, but I went to go pray in my closet, and I walked by his basket of clothes and immediately, got this little annoyance, like, ugh, he never puts his clothes away. And then it was like a split second, and then went into the closet and prayed. And, I was there for a while, and it wasn't until the end of the prayer that I got this feeling. It was at the end of the prayer I got this feeling, and it was, put Bryan's clothes away. I was like, are you kidding me?
That's good.
Like all this stuff that I've been doing to like take care of him and help him, and now I gotta do one more thing, and it came in like, put his clothes away. I was like, okay, well, I will, I'll just do it later. And then it came again, like a third time, like, put his clothes away and do it right now. And so I go back in, I grab his basket of clothes, and he's sleeping, and I just kind of look at him like, ugh, he's sleeping and I'm putting his clothes away. So I go and I put his clothes away. Of course, they're all messed up in the closet, so I start pulling them out, and that's when I find the empty pill bottle that he had just prescribed probably a week before that. It was supposed to be a month supply, and it was empty. I realized, how bad it had gotten, and so I went in and talked to him, and he admitted, and at that point was when we were trying to get help.
I may very well have died if it wasn't for Holly finding that pill bottle. I was addicted, and I was in a lot of pain, and so I was just taking more and more and more and more, and I'm pretty sure I would have overdosed at some point.
What made you work to become clean and sober?
I think we kind of already talked about that a little bit. I think it was just me realizing, because I love my freedom, right? I love my freedom. I love to be able to do whatever I want, anytime I want. That's just who I am. I just want my freedom. And so in the beginning, I was like, I want my freedom. If I want to take this stuff, I should be free to do it. Nobody can tell me what to do. And then I realized I was the exact opposite of free. I think that started to play a role, because I was just like, man, I can't do anything. Anytime we would go somewhere on a trip, we would go on a family trip somewhere, and I would have to plan out, where am I going to stash this stuff, and how am I going to put it somewhere where Holly won't find it, and how am I going to have enough, or am I going to run out while I'm gone and I'm not going to be able to find more. And so I just realized I had become a slave, and it was just hard trying to deal with all that stuff. I knew how much I was hurting Holly. At some point, it finally kicks in. You know, there's a lot in your head saying, oh, she's fine, she doesn't even know, it doesn't hurt her, what she knows doesn't hurt her, you know. There's a lot of these things going on inside my head. And so finally, you have to push that garbage aside and realize you're hurting a lot of people. And when I realized that I was hurting Holly and hurting my kids, and I wasn't the best husband and father they could have, is when I realized, I was like, okay, things have got to change. And I don't think I've told this to very many people. So something that happened to me the last time I quit, which was in December, I just kept feeling like, man, you need to get your life back together because you're a mess. And I just kept getting this feeling like, man, you know, you got to fix things. You got to fix things. I think it was the night before that I finally confessed to Holly. I just heard a voice, and the voice was very clear, and it was like somebody was in my ear, and the voice just said, time's up. And I knew instantly what that voice meant. I think that was like the final trigger for me. It was like, okay,
What did it mean?
you need to stop. Time's up. You're done.
Or what?
I don't know. I don't know what the or what was. I didn't even question it. I don't know. I don't know what it meant. I don't know if it meant you're gonna die. I don't know if it meant Holly's gonna leave you. You're gonna lose your kids. You're gonna lose your job. I don't know what it meant. I didn't ask. It was just a voice, and it wasn't a mean voice. It was just a stern voice saying time's up. And instantly I knew that voice meant you're done. I don't know. I've used that to help stay away from it.
I have to say, you know, I turned it over to God, and that's how I was able to approach you differently. But also, there were a lot of times when I would suspect he was taking it, and further back in the past, I would be really depressed about it. That would be like all I could think about was that, and worrying about it and stressing about it. And eventually, not only turning it over to God helped, but I think when you turn things over to him, he helps you change yourself and focus on yourself. So I started to focus on myself. Instead of focusing on him and worried about changing him, I started focusing on myself and realized that I had a lot of work to do, and there was a lot of ways that I could change and I could be a better person in what I did. And not only like without him, like alone as myself, but I could be better as a wife, as a mom, as and reacting and how I reacted with him. So I started to really focus on myself. I started running. I started going to the gym. I started doing a lot of self-care, even just hot Epsom salt baths and massages, and working on my business. Working on my business was a big thing. It took my energy and focus and time off of him and worrying about him into something more productive. And I started just putting all of my work and energy and focus into my business and in growing that. And that was a lot easier. That was a lot easier to do because I can't, obviously I can't control him and I can't control what he does, but I can focus on myself and I can work on myself, and in turn that helps me to be able to cope and handle and deal with it. There would even be times where I probably figured he was taking it, but I would just know, I don't know. Sometimes I knew I was supposed to approach him and talk to him and try and get him to admit to me. I could never go at him with, I know you're doing this. I always had to go at it with him being the one to let go and, I guess, release the control and admit. I could never say, I know you're doing this, admit it to me.
Yeah, because that would never work.
You had to be the one to admit it.
Yeah. I will say that there was one other way I used to deal with it, and it was like through music. But like listening to certain things kind of helped me through it as well.
Yeah, definitely music helped me through it. Did you ever feel bad about doing it when you weren't high? The drive to get more of it stronger? I think you did feel bad about it because
no, I definitely did. I still remember I was at a certain intersection here in the valley, and I remember thinking, I think I'd been off of it for a day, and I was trying so hard, and I was on my way to go get it. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I cannot go get this. I can't. I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want it. But I did. You know, and so I did feel bad. I felt bad. I think that's a side effect of addiction that people don't often talk about, is the guilt and shame that you feel, because you begin to hate yourself so much because you feel weak and you feel like you're hurting everybody around you. You feel like you have no self-worth. And so it's like, when people commit suicide, because of their addiction, I understand it 100%. That's crossed my mind before. You know, it's like, okay, I'm never going to get off this, and all I'm doing is hurting everybody around me. And so when you feel like, when you wake up every day, you get your high, and while you're high, your guilt is just through the roof, and then you come crashing down, your guilt is still through the roof, and then you need another high, and so to go get that other high, your guilt is through the roof. So basically you're just feeling guilty all day long, every day, and that's just your life. You know, it's almost like, it's like a weird cycle. It's like you're using this substance to get rid of your guilt, but your guilt is there because of this substance. It's a weird thing.
What has made you choose to stay and work through it?
I think that was for you.
There were many times that I was ready to leave.
Yeah.
Many times. But all those times, I would be angry or hurt. And the times when I felt the most strong or the most at peace, those times in my life, I knew that I was supposed to stay and work through it and work it out. So I think it was really, I kind of looked at my emotions and how I was feeling at times that I wanted to make different choices. And every time I wanted to leave, it was through anger or hurt or fear. I think I've kind of already answered that in a way. What made me choose to stay and work through it is...
Oh, focusing on you?
Yeah, I mean, focusing on God and myself, and being able to see you differently. I was also able to see you as someone who was amazing. Like, I always thought, I remember thinking, like, you're so amazing. You're like such an awesome person.
It's been a long time ago.
No, like without these pills. Like, I remember thinking, like, you're so amazing, you're so awesome, and you know, I married you without these pills, and these pills just ruin you, and they make you this horrible, awful person. And at one point it clicked that you were amazing whether you were taking pills or not. Like, you were still my husband. You were still the person I married. It was just a struggle. It was a struggle that you were dealing with, and I just had to look at it in a different light. And I think that's where I started to see you, you know. I think that's where I started to, you know, start to feel bad for you, because I knew, I mean, yeah, I was hurting, and there were a lot of times where it hurt, and I felt like you were doing this to us in our marriage, and you were, you know, but then I started to see the other side, and I started to see that you were hurting as well.
For me, I mean, there was never really, like, there were the thoughts like, yeah, this would be easier without a wife. You know, I could live my life the way I want, but there was never really thoughts of actually leaving. You know, I guess I entertained it in my mind a couple times, like, oh, I should just leave, well, whatever. But it was never a serious thought for me. I just knew that it was just kind of this weird knowing, I guess, that we were supposed to be together. Yeah, I just never really considered it an actual thought for me, unless I screw things up bad enough to where she actually leaves.
Yeah, on to the next question. Have you set a limit, either personally or together, on how much you're willing to deal with? I think that I threatened to leave so much.
A lot.
And even would leave overnight or kick you out overnight. But there was finally a point that I even came out and told Bryan. Like, I never wanted to tell Bryan. So I felt like leaving was like the only thing I had that would get him to stop. Straighten up and be good. And if I could hold that over his head, then that's the only thing that would keep him from doing it. I never wanted to tell him that I'm not going to leave you. Because if I said that, then I felt like I was giving him the freedom to do whatever he wanted. Which isn't the case. And then finally, at one point, I realized that I don't know, that wasn't working, or that wasn't right, or I just Finally, at one point, I realized that I would just tell him. Like, I think there were times when he would be afraid to tell me. And I finally told him, Bryan, we've been together this long and gone through all these addictions and lying, like everything we've been through. And I haven't left you. I'm obviously not going to leave you. And that was a really scary thing for me to say, because I felt like I was giving him permission to go do whatever he wanted. But in actuality, I think it was the completely opposite what I was doing. It was completely...
I think it was just like,
I don't know, when I said that to you, what did you...
Oh, because when she said it, it was just kind of like, like when you're going through addiction, you feel like you're alone, right? Because you're hiding it from everybody. And I think when she said that, it was like, okay, I'm not alone, right? I have somebody that's on my side that can help me through this, and I don't need to treat her as an enemy like I had been, because, she was the enemy. She was trying to keep me from doing it, and she was getting mad when I was doing it. She was keeping me from the things that I want to do, because that's what I wanted to do. And I think when she finally said that, it was just like, okay, I'm not alone in this.
How much would I be willing to deal with? I don't think I could say for sure. I think that when you have love in your heart and peace, and you have that relationship with God, He'll tell you when it's time. He'll tell you when it's right, He'll let you know whether you're supposed to continue the relationship or not.
Yeah.
And if you're making those decisions, if you're making any decisions through fear or anger or hurt, I would just be really careful. Did it affect your desire to want to be around other people, like with your family or extended family or friends? Like, did it affect your desire to want to be with people at all?
Yep. Yeah. It's just the way it was, and I preferred to be alone. And anybody who knows me knows how much I love to be with my kids. I love my kids to death, but it definitely did affect the time I wanted to spend with my wife and kids.
When you were talking about triggers, things that trigger you, I think as someone who is married to an addict, you also have triggers. And, my triggers are obviously anytime you leave the house, anytime you want to be alone, anytime, just anything related to that, anytime you get like more upset or angry than normal, anytime he'd have more energy than normal, anytime he wouldn't eat. Like, there are so many triggers. And one thing that I had to explain to him, I was like, you want me to know that it is so hard for you all day long, and this is what you're thinking about. Like, you're thinking about these pills, and you're thinking about, wanting to get that, and, that's like, and you have these constant triggers, and that it's really hard for you. I'm like, you have to realize that it's the same for me. Yeah. Like, that's what I'm thinking all day. Is he doing this? Why is he doing this? Why is he doing that? What is he taking it again? And I have to work through that too. So every time he comes clean, he has to work through those triggers and
deal with it.
But every time he comes clean, I have to do that as well. And it's really, even when I'm like, have that peace and love in my heart, it's still really hard. And I still have to work through that fear, because the fear will come. It's not, you don't constantly have that love and peace in your heart. Like, that comes and goes. And so I have to then work through my triggers and my emotions and deal with that. Like, I have to deal with
your own trigger stuff.
Yeah. I have to deal with my own addiction of worry and fear, and with him as well. But like it does for him, it gets easier over time with me. Like, the longer he goes without it, and the longer he's clean, it gets easier for him. It also gets easier for me. Well, hopefully this helped, if even one person, then it was worth it.
Yeah, so just we were doing this. I kind of felt like maybe we could talk about it and shed our experience, or shed some light on our experience.
If you have any other questions, just let us know down below. Until next time.